So right now I'm driving down the streets of Miami, and I couldn't think of a better time to be doing this. But at night time, to head to the world famous Frost School of Music. I can't tell you how many times I've made this drive as a student, as a professor, and now as somebody who actually hasn't been back to the campus in like 10 years now. It's been a long time. Well, right here you can see typical Miami, driving with the high beams on. Of course, that made no difference whatsoever. Okay, I've been sitting at this light for what seems like ages. Still at the light. Deliverance! You would pass right by the church, let me bless myself, and then you'd make a right into Sorority Row. Okay, this circle thing is new, and so is all of this. Jesus Christ, where am I? Okay, so I'm here on the campus, and I feel like I've landed on a different planet. If you look real carefully, you can see how students practice nowadays. Now this is starting to sound like a music school. Saw Bruce Springsteen in this stairwell. This was Ron Miller's room. It is now a practice room.
You're all freshmen.
You're all freshmen. Perfect. Okay, so let me just ask you this. What do you expect from music school?
Well, I expect music school to provide certain opportunities outside of just like normal lessons and normal ensembles. Like, I want them to be able to diversify my musical abilities, like through opportunities I didn't know I could have, various groups I didn't know I could play in, musical like things I didn't even know about. I think they need to open my eyes more to the music scene.
Okay. Anybody else?
Well, I mean, I just would say that I think the music industry in general, as a whole, is a lot about people and about the connections you make and sort of who you're able to groove with, and that's the wrong word, but like who you're able to jam with and who you can collaborate with. And I feel like here it's sort of like a little microcosm where you can find all of those people that you want to work with and you want to.
What do you guys think about the amount of money that it costs to go to a school like this? Versus what your expectations are out of the school.
Yeah, I think it's a big risk. Spending a lot of money investing in music, you know. But I think that's a risk that we're all willing to take.
Well, on the flip side, like they're very generous with like if they see that you have a potential in music, they want you to be here. Right. So that almost takes cost like out of the equation. Like, at least for me, like I knew this was the place that was going to be the best fit for me, and they helped work with me to make it more reasonable. So they're not just going to demand it out of you.
So helping work with you in quotations means giving you scholarship.
Yeah.
Okay. So is there anything that you would want to say to like prospective people thinking about going to music school?
Oh man, so yeah.
Like definitely like weigh your other options, because music definitely doesn't have like the most stable doesn't have the most like job stability, but if it's definitely your passion, you should definitely pursue it.
Yeah.
If you're going to go for it, go somewhere, either have a plan for what you're going to do or go somewhere where you know that they can make a plan for you or help you make a plan.
So can you say your majors, each one of you?
Right now I'm an entrepreneurship major.
Okay.
I'm a saxophone performance major.
Okay.
I'm a psych major.
Psych major, right?
I'm electronic media, trying to switch into major.
Perfect. So these four were so cool. They didn't know me from anybody. I just walked into their room. They agreed to the interview, and I never got their names. So I hope they reach out so I can stay in contact. So now that you're a senior, what are your thoughts? Was it worth it?
Well, junior year was probably one of the most depressing years of my life, and I spent most of the year thinking I shouldn't be in music school, and really hating being in music school.
Why is that?
Just because I had a bunch of friends who hadn't gone to music school at all, but who are my same age. They seem to be better players, they seem to be gigging. But in retrospect, this year, after a summer of being in town and actually hanging out with them, I don't feel that way at all, actually. Now, I'm thankful for music school. I really think that whatever situation you're in, whether you're just at school or you're not at school, it's going to come down to what you want to accomplish and what you're willing to do to make that happen.
Do you hear people talking about the cost to benefit ratio?
I hear a lot of people that are here right now, I know got money from the school and were kind of the members of the faculty at Frost specifically helped them get that money, and that's something that when I was auditioning and getting letters from schools, that this was one of the very few schools that actually gave me enough money to make it possible to go here.
Are you worried about debt after school?
Am I worried about it? I'm anxious to see, but I'm confident that if I work hard and apply the knowledge that I've learned here, and part of that is being so confident in seeing guys like Rory and other seniors and the way they play. I feel confident that by the time I get to that point, I'm going to be a marketable enough musician where I can, live a life doing this.
Okay.
And I'm also willing to work but with the stuff I learned in Gen Ed at the same time.
Oh, okay, great. And you?
You could have the cost to benefit rate conversation with any school, but within music school, you have to, it's two separate conversations. There's conservatory, and then there's universities with music programs. I'm not personally worried about debt. I'm lucky enough to not really have to, but I am worried about making the most of the degree once I get it.
Are you getting pressure from your parents? What are you going to do after school?
Well,
you are? You're getting that?
Okay. Well, it's getting there. I'm also a senior, and they're like, "Oh, what are you doing for life?"
Okay, so you're still at the stage where your parents are really happy you're in school.
Yeah, well, they're kind of on board. I don't know. It depends. They're successful people, and also had kind of bizarre paths. They didn't end up working in what they studied in university. They ended up just fine. So they're they happen to be. I know not everybody has this privilege, but my parents are actually very confident in me. Which makes me feel good. I know some people, maybe it's not the case. So, yeah, but I'm in the minority. Most parents, I would reckon, are concerned about what their parents are going to do. But this is a time in our lives where we're allowed to not really know. And that's one of the pluses of music school is, if this is what you want to do, now would be the time to do it. When you're 35, it's a little bit harder to say, oh yeah, man, checking out all these records, transcribe. It's no, you should probably have a job by then,
To be honest, when I hear that question, I'd have to ask, was it worth your time and was it worth the money? That's probably the two things to consider. Time-wise, I would say yes, because when I went to school, I was 18. I needed more help, both with my musical competence and also a little more time to grow up. And offered a great environment for me, both to have peers and great teachers. Monetarily, that's a whole other question that I think is very. It's important to ask how much you want to take out loans or go into debt to pay for music school. But if you can get a lot of scholarships and pay very little for music school, then I think it's worth it.
So if you were to do it all over again and you were looking down the barrel of the price tag, which I think is an important consideration these days because school has gone, skyrocketed since when we were in school. Would you do it all over again?
I wouldn't have had the same friends. I wouldn't have had the same cliques. I wouldn't have had the same experiences that formed who I am as a musician today. It doesn't mean I wouldn't have made other ones outside of school. If I just had a private instructor for 4 years, or if I just played in a band for 4 years, I could have also been a professional musician, but maybe a different one than the one I am today. Maybe better, maybe worse, I don't know. but it would definitely have been different because I am formed by the musicians with whom I played and the teachers whom I studied and all the ensembles I did and really the time I spent practicing and learning at school. It's the time I spent shedding there was really important for me and bouncing ideas off of other people. Would I do it again? Once again, I say that if you can do it at a lower cost, then yes, it's worth it. Meaning, if you could save up money before going to school, audition or apply for many scholarships that help reduce the tuition cost, then yes, I would do it again. But I wouldn't go into debt with student loans totaling more than $100,000 just to come out as a musician. Because being a musician is hard enough. I don't think you should start your career as a professional musician $100,000 in debt.
Would you be playing with Shakira now had you not gone to University of Miami and met the people you met there?
Yes. None of the people that I did to get the Shakira gig had anything to do with Miami. It was coincidentally, a lot of the people I play with also went to University of Miami, but that is a coincidence. It's not how I got the gigs. I basically got all the connections from playing live gigs on the scene in Miami. And I played a lot of sessions for different rock and pop bands, and I played a lot of gigs Monday through Sunday doing the gig.
How hard did you work at school?
Very, very hard. I had no social life, and I would practice every night at the rehearsal studios there that was at Foster from maybe 8 to midnight until the building closed. And on the weekends, I'd put at least 1 or 2 days of practicing like a 12-hour day with a big schedule of things to work on. I'd go with a list broken up by the hour of all the different styles of music and exercises I was working on. So I put in a lot of hours, but I could have done more.
So, you know, that's the kind of hardcore attitude and discipline that most of us who go to high-level music schools have. Now let's take a look at the price tag of some of these schools. Let's have a look at the price per semester over at the University of Miami now. Now there were so many things to click on the website, I couldn't find the bottom line. So you're going to need a calculator and you're going to need to take your time and put all of the numbers together, and then of course, like usual, add a bunch of extra money because there's going to always be the hidden costs. And now you see Rutgers here weighing in at $28,543 for on-campus living, and let's just not even look at the next number because, you know, that's a guesstimation that they can't really even be sure about, because who knows how much living off campus is going to cost. But Rutgers is known for being a relatively inexpensive school as far as inexpensive schools go. And just because it's inexpensive doesn't mean it's great, so you gotta go check it out. So here's the new school in New York with the same price point or nearly the same price point as University of Miami. If you've ever been to New York City, you know that everything is expensive there, so make sure you've got your wallet primed. So here we have the University of North Texas, which is an absolutely amazing school. And, you know, being a graduate of University of Miami and a former employee, it is my duty to consistently slag this school because we have an ongoing rivalry. So as you can see by the price, $19,945, that they prove to you that you can be stuck out in the middle of nowhere, walk through 10 miles of cow pies, just so you can play Charlie Parker licks at an affordable rate. Now, honestly, I don't even know what to say about these numbers. I mean, I think that, you know, I had heard about this, like much like I heard about the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot, or maybe that I was going to win Mega Millions over the weekend. I mean, looking at these numbers here and knowing that these numbers are probably low, you know, like that you're gonna have more costs than you think you're gonna have with just about anything. You know, you go to the fair, you're gonna have you might want to buy you know, fried dough or something, like a couple more than you thought, and then you're gonna end up with a massive stomach ache after, which is probably the same thing that's gonna happen after you try and pay this debt back. Because 71 times 4 plus additional costs equals this price tag. Now, of course, Berklee has turned out some great students, But anybody savvy enough to really know the college game, so to speak, knows that this price tag is also contributing to a portion of the scholarships that a lot of students get.
And now back to our regular scheduled programming.
Was it worth it? Was music school worth it?
Yeah.
And that's a complicated question, but for me, personally, yes, it was worth it. First of all, I didn't pay for it. Because to be frank, I got paid to go to school.
Great.
That was a requisite of mine, which I think I'm really I was really proud of myself for making that decision, because I had the option to go to Berkeley and Eastman, who both offered me scholarships as well, but not full scholarships, so I still would have been paying some money. But I decided to go to the conservatory at UMKC to study with Bobby Watson, where I was being paid to go to school. And that was, it didn't even take me... I don't think I was even in school when I realized, why would I go to music school and want to be in debt, So there's that aspect of it. It's always what I think about when I'm thinking about music school, and whether it's worth it for other people. I think the money part of it should be taken seriously. You don't want to graduate with thousands of dollars of debt and be a musician. But in terms of my career, it was good. The most important thing I really got out of school was the kind of community that of people that I got to know. They're musicians that I still play with to this day. Also, I formed a band in that school that went on to make a record and win a competition and got and toured and stuff. So, that's one of the benefits I always take when I'm talking to people about school and where they should go is to make sure they're going to a place where they can be surrounded by peers that are on a good level that are going to inspire them musically.
The money is a serious consideration for you.
The money is the first consideration.
How did you develop that sensibility?
I don't know. I just think I was being realistic about it. So for a little background, I did really well in school. I was 4.0 high school student, and my parents are immigrants, and many immigrant parents want their kids to do stuff like being a doctor or being a lawyer and stuff like that. So, they're well, we'll support you with whatever you want to do. You have to be realistic when you're making a choice okay, I'm going to do music. So, the reality of the music world is that it's not going to support someone who's, got debt in the triple digits,
Perfect.
It's just not.
So Rick, you went to music school, right?
Yes, Ginge.
Okay. Let's take two. Okay, so you went to music school, and I have a question, which is the question I've been asking everybody. Was it worth it?
Well, it was worth it to me at the time because school was really inexpensive when I went. I went to a private school for both undergrad and master's degree, and I took out $8,000 in loans, and that was it to get through my master's degree. That's with scholarship, and school just didn't cost much back then, so it was totally worth it. It was.
What is?
I was able to get out of school and make a living and pay back my student loans.
Okay, so to be more specific, when I'm saying was it worth it, when you say it was worth it, what exactly do you mean besides just being able to pay back your loans?
Well, I learned a lot. I learned my undergrad degree was in music education, so I learned how to play a number of different instruments, and I majored in classical bass. And I played in an orchestra every day, and that was unbelievably helpful to me as a musician. I played bass in the orchestra, and I took class clarinet and class violin, class viola, class cello, and I had to play all these things proficiently.
And you're still using that stuff today?
I use all those things because I do things with orchestration, and that taught me about the ranges of instruments. That taught me what the range of an oboe is, what the range of a flute is, that a French horn transposes, that a trumpet transposes. It taught me all the different transpositions of instruments. You had to know that stuff. So then when I went to grad school, I went for jazz guitar, and that was worth it because of all the people that I met. I wouldn't say that I learned as much. No, I learned a lot, but I learned it from the people that I was hanging out with that were amazingly great players.
So if we could, let's say if we could make you young again, younger than you already are, would you do it again? Paying today's prices, knowing what you would get if you went to music school, would you do it again and pay the 30 or 40K a year, or in Berklee's case, way more than that?
It's really hard to say because I can't. I'm a big proponent of school because school is not just a time to go learn. It's a time where you learn to grow up. That's a good thing about college. If you go away to school, you mature, especially if you go away, to a city. Like I went to Boston for grad school, and I'm from a small town in upstate New York, a town of 5,000 people. And you go and you live in the city of Boston, and you learn a lot about the world. And there's that's something that is invaluable. So I can't really put myself, because I don't know what I would do. I assume with my work ethic that I would be successful in music. Again, even if I went to school and borrowed a lot of money and had a big debt for it, that I would still be able to make a living, pay my loans back. So,
how important is it to be competitive?
It's incredibly important. It's everything in life. We compete every day. You compete. You want to get in an orchestra, you got to, beat other people out. You want to get out, every job that you go for, everything you compete. You compete, you want to get on the charts, you got to knock someone else off. When you get on the radio, you're competing against Taylor Swift, you're competing against, whoever. You're competing against all the biggest people out there. You're always competing. Well, Beyonce doesn't matter. You get on the radio, you got to knock someone else off. You're taking someone's space.
What was your quote? There are those who talk, and
there's those who talk and those who do. You want to be a doer or a talker?
Exactly.
I want to be a doer.
So, has it been worth it?
Yes and no. I definitely think it was worth it in the long run as far as me growing as a person. I've met some great people, I've grown as a musician, but the level of stress I've had as a double major, considering I'm not going into the music field professionally, I wouldn't.
What is your double major?
Biology. I wouldn't be veterinary.
Oh, so really? Okay.
The amount of work I have to do in music school when that's not my profession, I'm like, was it worth it?
What about paying back student loans?
Well, I'm here on a scholarship, so that definitely is one of the things that was worth it. I am not paying for school, thanks to my incredible Viola professor who helped me get a scholarship here.
Okay, final question. If you had to pay for the school, would you come to the school?
I would have been at University of Florida. I would not be.
Okay, so Brian, I know that you went to music school. My question to you that I've been asking everybody else is, was it worth it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think for me it was worth it for a few reasons. First I was there on a scholarship, so that made it, the financial aspect wasn't as much of a concern. As far as using it as a tool to sort of develop a career in music, I ended up taking a different path. I kind of put the music aside as a means to develop a career to support myself. So, but I would say if you have the passion for it and you have the means to spend some time, spend some years focusing on that, then then yeah, it's going to be worth it if you make it about actually learning about music and not necessarily about having a career in music. I still write and I still record, and that has been something that's been a passion for me throughout, even though I'm not doing it professionally.
Say that again?
This is why I had to not be a jazz musician. And now I'm a lawyer.
A lawyer, yoga teacher, musician.
Yes.
Rena, you went to music school. I have one question for you, and the question is this. Was it worth it?
Of course. Every day. Any day. I mean, me particularly, I left Peru. I wanted to pursue being a musician, and I don't think I could have found a better place to go to. And it was very warm at the time. My teachers were amazing. My colleagues were super talented, and I just, I felt at home. And I'm very proud of having been able to graduate from UM Music School, the jazz program.
And going to school, how has that impacted your life now? Like, is it reaching into your life now from all the way back then?
Of course. Every day. I still work with music and in music, and every time I mention that I've been to UM Music School, people see me in a different light. I mean, it shouldn't be like that, but it is what it is. And like I said, I'm very proud of my achievement, and I miss those days sometimes, because I learned so much.
How competitive were you at school, and how important was it to be like in the top 5% as far as skill?
You have to be, otherwise it was bye-bye. I mean, when I started in my class, it was about 14 of us, and only 4 graduated.
Was going to music school worth it?
Yes. Going to music school is definitely worth it. I can say there's some things that I got out of it that maybe I don't use now as far as like education stuff, but I think especially the connections you make, the personal connections you make with other musicians, that's to me the most valuable part of it. I mean, the training is great and all that, but I mean, I found that when I got out of school, the first connections I had for getting gigs were people that I went to school with. When I moved to LA, the first gigs I got were from people that I went to school with that referred me for gigs. And I still play with a lot of people that I went to school with. So I think it was worth it for that reason alone.
And how about the cost? And would you do it today if somebody told you that to go to the same school was going to cost you $40,000 a year?
Probably not. If I mean, because you look at your potential for return on investment. Let's say, is that what it is? $40,000 a year?
I think that the school is now $40,000.
So you're looking at 100. If I had to pay $40,000, would I do it? Probably not, because you look at $160,000 over 4 years plus living expenses. That's a lot. If you're paying for that yourself without any kind of scholarship or help, that's a lot of student loan money to pay back, and that will take you a long time. And if you look at potential for return on investment, on paper it just does not make sense, because it's hard to make a living as a musician. There's some of us that are able to do it, and we're fortunate ones, but it's hard out there. Not everybody can. I've seen a lot of people go through music school and get out and get into different careers a couple years later. So if I had to pay $160,000 for my music school education, I probably wouldn't do it.
I'd probably just go to a city and just play as much as possible, you know?
So could you have made the contacts that you made where you went to school if you had not gone to school? Could you have made those same contacts? Do you feel confident that you could have done that if you just moved to LA?
Definitely, yeah. If you just move to a city, play with people all the time, go out and meet musicians, of course. But I'm still really glad I went to music school. I mean, I learned a lot from my teachers and my fellow students. I played a ton, played all different styles of music. I mean, it was a positive experience, for sure.
I know you went to music school,
Yeah.
and the big question that I have for you is, was it worth it?
Worth it? Financially, yes, kinda. Overall, as a musician, yes, definitely.
Do you think that the contacts that you made back when you were in school, do you think that those that those contacts are keeping you employed now?
No, I can definitely say that I keep me employed now. And I started my label, my company. I rarely work with UM musicians. I mean, when I say rarely, I mean like every 944 days, I'll work with the UM musician. And I just worked with the UM musician this past Sunday for the first time in like 2 years. I'm dead serious.
So music school was worth it, but you're not working with those people you went to school with, which is very interesting.
A lot of the guys, like the heavy hitters, guys like we saw in the hallway and we knew would do it and do well in the industry, they moved to New York and LA and that kind of thing, or overseas, and they're doing well. But like I said,
did you incur any debt?
yeah, like 30 grand, I'd say. I just finished paying that off a few years ago, man. And dude, at one time I was paying like 620 something bucks a month. And then I got them deferred, and then that interest accrued. Because the initial debt was, I want to say, $17,000, right at $20,000, somewhere in there. But having it deferred, interest accruing, it blew up to like 30 something, real quick, man.
A student takes a class, a new student takes a class. He's not doing well, so he figures he's just going to drop it and he'll take it again next time. Let's say that class was $1,500. What's your advice to those kind of students who they're not seeing the green leave their pocket, but they're not really in tune with the interest aspect of the loan?
I would tell them to man up. I'm serious, dude. I wish somebody told me that, because I dropped the class and took it later, and not realizing that financial sticker that was behind it.
How much was that class?
It had to be like $1,100 maybe.
$1,100.
Yeah.
And then that became what?
After you drop it and pick it up again, $2,700.
That's with the interest.
Yeah. I wish that I could have majored in something different other than classical music, but I took advantage of being the only black percussion classical major at UM. That's how I was able to get my scholarship after my first year. I proved myself. I had straight A's, you know. I do remember getting an MLK scholarship and a JFK scholarship.
So, was going to music school worth it? The short answer is, for me, definitely yes, it was worth it. Like I said, I did work as a guitar teacher and a guitar player for, I guess, about 9 years straight out of music school. But even when I went on to my next thing, professional poker player, you might think, oh, was it not worth it since you ended up doing something different anyway? It was absolutely still worth it, because first of all, music is my biggest passion in life. I think it always will be. It's definitely what I knew I wanted to focus on. And you know, whatever you go to school for and whatever you do, like, it's so easy for people to want to define themselves, you know, when you meet someone and they ask you so quickly, what do you do? What do you do? But just even if you're not doing even if you're not making a living as a musician anymore, I mean, you can always consider yourself a musician. I'll always consider myself a musician. I still play guitar and piano and write songs, and and will always enjoy music. And I might decide to go back to teaching or playing music professionally one day. And that's the good thing about it. There's always that option. So for me, it was definitely worth it. No, does everyone have to go? No, I mean, there's countless examples of successful professional musicians that did not go to music school, and it wouldn't have been right for them. The number one main thing, if you want to be a performer, is your ability to perform on your instrument. Your ability to play at a high level, entertain people, interact well with other musicians, and of course all the things like having a good business sense and all that kind of stuff. So you can do all of that without going to music school, but going to music school will definitely help you kind of structure all of that. It'll, guarantee that you get a lot of high-level colleagues and friends that you can interact with. And if you want to go into, definitely for me, someone like me who went into teaching, I think it definitely helped to have that degree and to be able to, show that it's something, you're not just someone putting a Craigslist ad for guitar lessons or something, you're actually someone who got a degree in what you're doing. So it can definitely help, I think, your credibility for certain things. But but the short answer is, I'm definitely glad I went to music school. It helped shape my life for the better.
I know you went to Berklee School of Music because I had my detective do his work. I have one question for you. Okay. Was it worth it?
Was it worth it? I think I went to Berklee at the right time I needed to be there. And especially just growing up in Dubai, I didn't have a lot of musicians to play around with, so it forced me to be in musicians where I had to learn all my ensemble skills. And learn how to read a chart, how to prepare for an actual gig or how to take on gigs. So I definitely think that to really think about just my progression as a musician, it was definitely a great experience. And absolutely worth it.
Was there anything else that you find looking back upon it that's not replaceable, like that you couldn't have gotten anywhere else?
Definitely the network. I know it's a bit of a cliche answer, especially just considering how many Berklee grads or how many music school grads in general say the same thing, but at the time living in Dubai, I didn't have that network of musicians to be in touch with. So that limited a lot of, for example, I teach at a university now, and part of how I got that job was through the Berklee network. A friend who I went to school with at Berklee, who was in Colombia maybe the year before I got there, he put in a recommendation for me, and sure enough, things that got me the foot in the door for an interview, which I wouldn't have been able to do just staying in Dubai, for example.
So if you had moved to Colombia and you did not have the Berklee connection, could you have gotten that position, or?
I think I could have, it just would have taken much longer and required more effort.
If you were looking at the cost of the school now, let's say you're thinking now that you're going to go to Berklee School of Music as a guitar principal in performance, and you were looking at that price tag, if you were paying for that out of your pocket, if you had no scholarships, would you do it?
I would heavily think about it. I would really weigh up whether this is a beneficial choice I'm making. And maybe at the point of where I'm at now and how I look at things at this current point, I probably wouldn't take on that debt. Granted, I had some sort of a scholarship, so that helped me out. And Berklee's prices weren't as high as they currently are. Did my scholarship go down as the years went on? I actually managed to get a scholarship increase. So, but I think when you adjust that for how prices were increasing every year, it probably kind of just stayed the same.
What was the chatter amongst the students about the prices?
Definitely not positive.
Like,
Definitely.
how many students did you know that dropped out due to the prices?
Quite a few. Most people that left were definitely due to the prices or because they got a better gig somewhere.
Okay. The ones that left because of the prices, did they go to another school?
Some moved to like a big music city.
Okay.
So they go like Nashville or LA or New York straight away. Some of them went to another school, and some of them that did go to another school may have gone into a different program that was entirely unrelated to music.
So I know you went to music school, and I'm going to ask you the question that I've asked everybody. And the question is this: was it worth it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. On many reasons. Obviously, the education was, as good or better than anywhere else I could have gone. Going to the University of Miami. But I think, more importantly, it's sort of it was the boot camp, the training ground for everything that, we do as professionals, and, learning how to play in ensembles and working with other people and getting the best out of other musicians, and then getting the best out of, myself or whoever it might be, and sort of learning how to really cast, the right musician for a certain band or a certain, ensemble or whatever the case was, how to really find the right people that would be best for a particular thing, and those are things that I have to use all the time in my, professional life as a producer and as an arranger and as a musician. So, and then I think probably most importantly is just the relationships and the friendships. A lot of guys that I went to school with are still some of my best friends in the world, and guys that have gone on to do incredible stuff, and it's a real fraternity, and even when meeting guys that were either in school before me or after, that I wasn't actually in school with, it's, as soon as you say, I went to University of Miami, it's automatically like you're in a kind of secret club. So it was absolutely worth it. I'd do it again if I could.
So, are you working with a lot of the people that you went to school with?
I wouldn't say a lot, but obviously guys like Lee Levin, we even though I didn't know Lee very well when we were in school together, shortly after I got out of school, we met, more formally and started working together, and Lee and I still work, all the time.
Now, the price of school is on everybody's mind these days. So if you had to do it all over again, would you pay?
There's no way, without a scholarship that I got, there's no way I could have gone to the University of Miami. I was very lucky that I had a full tuition scholarship when I went to school, and that I worked, I had an on-campus job for all 4 years during school to help pay for my living expenses, and I was gigging was gigging 3-4 times a week pretty much all throughout college. So it was almost like a full-time job between the two. Without financial aid or scholarship, I wouldn't be able to go to a place like UM.
I'm ready to interview an old friend of mine who has some really hard-fought wisdom for us. And what do? I try and use the screen capture, and then I leave the cursor in the middle of the screen. So in Miami, I don't know if they have a saying for that, but they certainly have an expression, and it kind of goes like this. So I know you went to music school, you went to FAU, which is Florida Atlantic University, for those who don't know, and I have a question for you, and that is, was it worth it?
Well, I didn't pay big tuition to go to FAU, I only took the music classes.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't spend like a lot of money and, graduate and go, 4 years to the school. I did it in 2 years, and I only took music classes. That's it, nothing else. So yeah, it was worth that because Bill Prince was there and Chuck Moronic, and they were both really great teachers. Problem is there wasn't a guitar teacher really. The only guitar teachers were down in Miami, so I had to go down and take lessons with Simon Sauls every once in a while. That's why I went to MI, which was then called GIT in Los Angeles, because Joe DiOrio was there, Pat Martino, Robin Ford, Don Mock, a lot of good jazz players. Ron Eshte was there. So I went there because all that kind of harmony knowledge that I learned at FAU, I couldn't really apply it to the guitar as well as I wanted. So I went to MI, and that helped me a lot.
So between Florida Atlantic University and Musicians Institute, you did spend a lot of years in school getting it all together?
Well, 3.
As I say. So,
yeah.
So after doing all of these interviews, one of the things that came up a lot from the people that I spoke with was the cost of school. And I find it very interesting that that was the first thing that you mentioned, actually. There's obviously lots of parents that are wondering how they're going to be able to afford to send their child to school. And I'm just curious, why was price the forefront or at the forefront of your mind when I first posed that question to you?
Well, I mean, because you have to live, you have to, you can't. These days, I don't know how many people can afford to go to USC at like $80,000 a year. It's crazy. So, back when I was a student at MI, it was $3,000 for a year. That's certainly worth it to spend a whole year with Joe DiOrio and Pat Martino.
Yeah.
Now it's $27,000 or $28,000 a year. That I don't know how people can afford that. It's very expensive. So I guess it just depends on how much you can afford. But I have to say one thing about music schools in general. A lot of it is useless. A lot of it wastes time. And you're sitting there classes that are purposely drawn out, longer than they need to be. And I don't know anybody that teaches at a music school that plays as good as John Coltrane. Right. So the real learning experience is on your CDs, and it has been, ever since the history of recorded music. That's how people learn music, is they transcribe. And school is not going to make you it's not going to help you learn your phrasing or get your tone together or, learn great lines. That's all off your records.
What are your thoughts about, you're paying this high price and you're getting a chance to be amongst people that you would never be able to have a chance to meet if you otherwise didn't go to that school?
I guess that's true if you're coming from a very small town to a big city to go to school, but only then. If you live in somewhere very small and where you've done just about everything you can do in town and there's nothing left to do, and you want to move to LA or New York or Boston or someplace, or if you're from Europe and you want to come to America to try to get into the American music scene, then that's a different story. Then I guess that comes into play.
So did you make any contacts in school that you ended up working with when you got out of school?
I met Jeff Berlin, who was a teacher at MI, a bass teacher.
Right.
And he asked me to play on his first record, which actually got me recorded on an album that Chick Corea heard. and got me that gig, and Jean-Luc Ponty, and sort of helped jumpstart my career by being on that album with Jeff, and and being on an album with Jean-Luc and whatever, that helped. So yeah, I mean, I did make a connection at school that helped me to further my career. If you're a good player, man, you don't need a school to make connections. If you're a good player, you go out and go to jam sessions and stuff, and people hear you play. People go to clubs and jam, and they hear you play at clubs. You're just as likely to find your way into the professional music scene that way as to meet somebody at a school. In fact, I'd say you're a lot less likely to meet somebody at a school.
I know this sounds cheesy, but how important do you think personality is
Extremely important.
And how so?
Because it's a team sport. If you can't be a team player and you don't get along with people, you're not going to do good in this business, period. Well, sorry.
Have you seen that occur? Have you seen people...
A million times.
A million times.
I can't mention any names, but
That's
I know
okay.
people that get hired and fired the same week, and that's because nobody can stand them.
But they're great players.
As soon as their personality shows, they get fired.
And they're great players.
And they're great players. Tons of them.
Okay.
Yeah. They don't do well.
So we all know, be it this school or any music school, you're going to pay some cash. That's just the way it is. I really was humbled by the interviews I did, and the fact that I gave 20 years of my young life to this amazing music school is it's staggering to think about. And I really have a lot of respect for this place and all the people I met doing these interviews. It's just been a fantastic experience, and I hope you really gained something from it, because I know I did. And I've got my school pride reinstilled, and it was just a fantastic experience. And the fact that I gave 20 years of my life, of my young life, to this bird, to this building, that was good. I can't do anything serious, can I? This is your music school tuition, doo-dah, doo-dah. You know it's not gonna cover room and board, do-de-doo-dah-day, oh-de-doo-dah-day. You have no money to play, 'cause you're gonna have to pay it for interest, oh-de-doo-dah-day. It is humbling to return here.